Guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth. I am a 36-year-old attorney living in the DC area with my husband. And for today's video, I am going to be filming a full face of NARS. So I have the new NARS Light Reflecting Foundation that everyone has been talking about. I have two shades here. I have L1 Oslo and L2 Mont Blanc. So I'll be showing this as well as some swatches of some other NARS complexion products. And then I've also used the new NARS Summer Unrated palette that I filmed a swatch video of. And aside from those kind of hot new items from NARS, I pretty much have a full face. I don't have any of their primers and I don't have a brow product from NARS. But I have everything else, including their concealers, mascaras, blush products, of course, and bronzer, and some lip products. So if that all sounds good to you, make sure to keep watching, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so before I go in with kind of the normal application of the makeup, I thought I would go ahead and swatch some of these complexion products just so you get a sense of the shades and all of that. So as I mentioned, I do have two shades of the Light Reflecting Foundation. I think Mont Blanc was the first shade I ordered, and then I ordered Oslo after because I thought Mont Blanc was just a tad dark. I could kind of make it work, but I just hate having different shades on my face. So I do also have a sample of the shade Yukon that I got from Sephora, so I'll go ahead and swatch that for you as well. And as I've said before, some good shade matches for me are the Makeup Forever Reboot R208, the ColourPop Pretty Fresh in the shade Fair 20N is a good match. I just tried out the Kosas foundation in the shade Very Light Cool 120. This was a little deep on me, and what else can I share with you? I think I've been matched to the lightest shade in the Makeup Forever. I also have a sample of that, so maybe I can swatch that just for shade comparison. But if you have any questions about my shades and all of that, just let me know, and I will do my best to tell you if I know my shade. All right, so swatching Oslo first. I don't think I've worn this yet. So pretty liquidy foundation. I think this actually does look like it might be a better match for me than Mont Blanc. So this is Light 1 Oslo. I think what happened was I ordered Mont Blanc online based on like the Sephora shade finder, and that ended up being a little deep. So then I went back and I got samples of Oslo and Yukon, and then based on that, I ordered Oslo. All right, so let's try out Yukon. It's a much peachier shade. Yeah, Mont Blanc to me is looking very kind of yellow. I think Yukon looks a little deep, but the undertone isn't bad. I think like a lot of people, I have more redness in my face, and that kind of like skews my interpretation of a shade sometimes. I think like my neck is a little bit more neutral compared to my face. And my goal is usually to kind of get a good seamless match between my face and my neck. I don't self-tan, so I just kind of try to get the best match I can. All right, so shade A is the Makeup Forever, which I've contemplated getting a full size of. So that is Makeup Forever in N00, I think it is. And I think that's just like a much kind of thicker consistency product. I do need to try that out all over the face. I was tempted to buy it during the 30% off sale on the Makeup Forever website, but it was out of stock of that shade. And they do sell minis on the Makeup Forever site, so if you were curious about that product, they don't carry the minis in every shade, so you may or may not be lucky when it comes to that, but if they do carry a mini in your shade, it might be worth picking up. So I'm also going to swatch the NARS Pure Radiant Tinted Moisturizer in the shade Terre Neuve Light 0. And I think this is also kind of too yellow, too dark for me. I mean, I can kind of make it work, but I think what scared me off a lot of kind of NARS complexion products is I always had this feeling that they ran too yellow, and I think this shade definitely does. And while I am swatching some other products, I have the Soft Matte Complete Concealer in the shade Light to Vanilla, which I use a lot of times for spot concealing. And I also have the, what's it called? Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Light to Vanilla as well. This one might be a little dried out. I do have a mini of that as well. So that is Light to Vanilla in the matte and the radiant. And then I also got, as more of a brightening shade, the shade Light 1.25 Afterglow. I think this is supposed to be lighter, yeah. So hopefully you find these swatches helpful. I think I'm gonna go in with that Oslo shade though. I think that's gonna be the best for me all over. But like I said, I think that Yukon undertone would be nice. I don't really get any kind of tan in the summer. I'm pretty good about either staying out of the sun or wearing sunscreen. And when I am in the sun, I burn. So that's not something I generally want to kind of encourage. So starting off with the actual application, now that we've seen some swatches, I'm just going to go in with the First Aid Beauty Coconut Skin Smoothie Priming Moisturizer, just to make sure that the skin is nice and moisturized after I removed the swatches. Again, it's not been too long since I did my skincare, but I do have dry skin. I just like to make sure I have a nicely hydrated face before I actually start applying makeup. And I guess I'll go ahead and zoom you in a little bit. So NARS does make primers, but the primers they currently have are either kind of pore filling, mattifying, that kind of thing, or they have avobenzone, which is a chemical sunscreen that irritates my skin. So I'm just going to skip on that. So the first thing I do with my makeup application is I apply my under eye corrector. So I do have the Radiant Creamy Color Corrector from NARS. This is in the shade Light. And to be honest, I don't love this product. It has this really small little brush, which I find a bit kind of fidgety. And it's a pretty kind of, I don't know, deep orange color, which, you know, it's okay if your corrector is darker because you're going over it with a concealer and that kind of helps bring it back. So it's okay if it's a little bit darker because it can help neutralize, but I think for me this is just a little bit too dark. Let's go ahead and look up. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this was still the lightest shade. So this does come in 4 different shade options and light is the lightest. I'll just go ahead and swatch it next to the Charlotte Tilbury corrector, which is kind of my go-to. I don't know if you can kind of see in the pan there. Obviously a different form factor, but you can see the Charlotte Tilbury right there is definitely lighter, kind of more peachy. The NARS is a little bit more on the orange side, I would say. But we are doing a full face of NARS, so I will go ahead and use this. I'm not sure why they decided to go with a brush for the corrector as opposed to the doe foot that the concealer has. So I just kind of, you know, brushed it on, and usually I'm applying corrector with my finger anyway because it's in a pot. But I'm just going to kind of spread that out. I mean, I should have just done, I don't know if you can tell, like I just wiped away some of the product, but between that and that, it does definitely cancel out that blueness. So if you have some serious dark under eyes and you are doing a full face, you're not worried about kind of covering up the corrector too much, it might be something worth looking at. But if you want a more kind of no makeup look, just know that it will leave a bit of a kind of orange cast to your skin. So that is the corrector applied. And while we're talking, I always like to kind of have some sort of lip product on while I am doing my makeup. So I'm going to apply one of the Afterglow Lip Balms. This is very small. I think this one is the shade Laguna that came in like a birthday set. All right, so I have the Orgasm shade here. I'm just gonna throw some of this on. It does have a bit of a tint to it. It kind of feels very comfortable and nice. So I have some other lip products, but here you get an idea of what their Afterglow lip balms look like, and I think this is a pretty popular product for them. Okay, so I said I wanted to use the shade Oslo in the foundation, the light reflecting foundation, and I think this is the first NARS foundation that I have ever purchased. Like I said, I always felt like their foundations just went so yellow, and I do have more of a neutral to cool undertone. I think how they say you should apply this is to kind of use your fingers to kind of work it in. So I guess I'll start kind of spreading this out with my fingers and then go in to kind of perfect with a sponge maybe. NARS had kind of like a master class on their website not too long ago. So I know a lot of people have liked this recently. A lot of people have recommended it. Like I said, I do have dry skin, and I think it's a very nice kind of medium coverage foundation. It feels comfortable. It's not overly drying. And of course, now that we're heading into summer, you know, you want something that's not going to be kind of dripping off your face. So actually it didn't do terribly with just working it with my fingers. All right, so that is the side with the foundation and that is the side without. I feel like I might have to turn my lights down just a tad. So yeah, so I think it does a nice job of like canceling out redness. Turn it back up just a tad. Ooh, that's too light. Okay. So yeah, so I do like this product. You can purchase it at Sephora. It does, I think, dispense not too much product. I don't know if you just saw, like that's one pump up there. So it's nice in that way because you can kind of make sure that you're not dispensing too much product. So I did dampen my beauty blender just to be ready in case I needed it, but I think this actually does okay with just the fingers. Yeah, I think it does a good job of covering up redness. Like I can still see a tiny bit poking through, like where I have some blemishes and that kind of thing, but you know, just a couple spots that I can go in with the concealer. Let me know what you guys think of this shade match kind of overall. I think this is pretty good. If it had maybe a tad of that kind of Yukon undertone, I think it would be perfect, but alas, we don't have that. Okay, so I don't have any brow products from NARS, I don't think. I think they sell brow pencils, but I don't like to use brow pencils. I prefer to just use like a brow gel, a tinted brow gel. So I'm just going to go in with my Kosas brow gel here. When I do a full face like this, I try not to purchase products that I don't typically use just because I feel like there's no way for me to give a good review of the product to you because it's not something I typically use, and then I'm just wasting money on something that just sits around. So I'll just go in with this Kosas product. Okay, so let's brighten up the under eye. So I'm gonna go in with the Afterglow shade. It's been a while since I actually used this underneath the eyes. Or in general. I was using this soft matte concealer for a while there for spot concealing, but I've been playing around with some other products lately. All right, so for this one, I think I will go ahead and use my Beauty Blender just to kind of make sure that kind of melts in. I think that's a good shade combination though. I think I did ask, like the NARS website has a feature where you can, you know, chat with them or whatever. And I think I did ask for a shade recommendation of this foundation based on the Light 2 vanilla shade in the concealer. And they recommended Mont Blanc, in case that helps anyone. For face concealing, I definitely want to not use like a highlighting concealer. I'm just using my finger in this here. I will probably use that product as an under eye concealer in an upcoming video because I have kind of a video in mind that I want to film. So if you want to see that as an under eye concealer, make sure to stay tuned. But yeah, I think again that plays nicely with the NARS foundation. Okay, so those are the two, I think, most popular NARS concealers, if not the only NARS concealers, and I like both of them. So I think those are kind of cult favorites for good reason at this point. I don't know if you can see here kind of the amount that I've used this product. So it has gotten some serious love there. Yeah, this Radiant Creamy Concealer, they say it's the #1 US concealer. I'm not sure how it stacks up against Shape Tape, whatever metrics they're using, but this is definitely a good one. It's, I think, a little more forgiving than Shape Tape, and it is also available in a mini size, which is great. So I had the mini here to show you. The mini has 1.4 milliliters and the full size has 6 milliliters. So definitely a pretty substantial difference in product, but you know, if you don't go through makeup that often or you just want a travel size or something less expensive, just know that it is available in a mini. All right, so next up I have the Light Reflecting Setting Powder in the pressed form. This is in the shade Translucent Crystal, which I think is the shade they originally launched with, and it was the only shade. This is a little bit of an older product, so it's doing that annoying thing where the packaging kind of starts to feel sticky. However, NARS makes this kind of soft touch packaging. It just over time kind of gets sticky, which is not my favorite. And to be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this powder. I held on to it, so I'm going to use it for this video. But I just found it kind of hard to pick up. I do have this, speaking of Tarte, this doesn't have a name on it, but I think it was the Power Flex Concealer Brush. Reminded me a little bit of the Taylor Wynn brush that she released with Sigma, although I don't have that brush, so this was just based on photos. And you know, that concealer actually does a pretty good job of not creasing. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to apply some of this powder. So I figured this kind of brush would be a little bit better at picking up the powder because it almost has that, like, it's not hard pan. Like, you can definitely see, like, I just rolled my finger in the product. You can definitely see on my finger there, but it feels like plastic almost. It is a very unusual feeling, but evidently NARS thought that, you know, the formula was good enough to release in more colors. So I'm just gonna kind of go underneath the eyes. So that is the set side, that is the unset side. So I would definitely recommend using some kind of like stiff brush to pick up the product. Again, this foundation still feels a tiny bit tacky. This mirror is like not, I can't see in it anymore. Yeah, it still feels a tiny bit tacky. It's not something I feel like I need to set necessarily, but just for the sake of, you know, everything blending on top, I'll go ahead and go in with this powder. Maybe I would like the loose version better, because I like the effect that this gives, but it's almost like I'm not sure if I'm actually applying anything, which just kind of, I don't know, it's difficult to gauge. So I think you can tell now that my face does look a little bit more mattified, and I do have dry skin like I said, so maybe a touch more matte than I would like, but we're just gonna roll with it now. I did just order that Say powder, the loose powder, in the Sephora VIB sale, so I'm very curious to play around with that when that gets in, because that's kind of marketed to be a powder for people who don't like powder or just kind of dry skin friendly. But anyway, going on to bronzer. So I just have this little sample of the Laguna Bronzer. So using this Rephr 22 brush is going to be almost comical. Rephr is having a 40% off sale, by the way. So if you were thinking of picking up any Rephr brushes, now would be a good time. This bronzer brush is definitely kind of my go-to. So this is the shade Laguna. I think, you know, applying it with a big brush like this, I'm kind of, you know, trying to get it in all the bristles and then just tapping it a bit on my hand. And as you saw, I like to kind of go around the hairline and just kind of down on the cheek. I don't think NARS sells any kind of dedicated contour products. Normally I use kind of a cooler tone contour, and then I do really like the Gucci bronzer, which is a little bit more on the cool tone as well. So I don't like it when bronzers are too warm. This does, I think, lean a little, I'd say it's more yellow than like orange or red, but I think that's actually kind of pretty. I think it gave me some color and dimension to the face, which is usually what you want bronzer to do. I think this does have a slight sheen to it as well. I actually swatched this next to the Laguna shade in the palette, the eyeshadow palette, and I think the bronzer actually has more of a sheen to it than the eyeshadow, which was kind of interesting. So let's talk about the NARS Orgasm Blush, which again is one of the flagship products for NARS. Obviously they've released a million products under that umbrella. So I'm going to use the blush in Orgasm. Again, I have another little mini here. And again, another favorite Rephr brush of mine is the number 5. I think this actually won like an InStyle award. So this one actually fits a bit better, which is good because this style of packaging makes it a little bit more difficult to fit a big brush in. So this is definitely kind of your shimmery blush. I can actually go in a little hard with it. I like to be a little careful before I'm aware of like how pigmented a blush is. I know like Britt Clark really likes the shade Orgasm X. I think Orgasm X might be in one of those like mini Sephora favorites kits that's like $10 or something, but I wasn't sure because the I think the description said Orgasm, but the picture was Orgasm X, so I'm not really sure. I think I want to build up the color a little bit, so I'm going to use the Rephr number 4, which is kind of more of your traditional angled blush brush. I feel like this one can kind of pack on a little bit more. Oops. It does give a really nice sheen to the cheeks. So we're definitely going for that kind of summertime glow. And I remember when I first tried this blush like 10 years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of like the kind of sparkle and glitter. I mean, you can see it close up, so it kind of depends on your preference. I wouldn't say it's like too noticeable. I do remember purchasing, this is another mini in the shade Deep Throat, which to me reminded me a bit of Orgasm, but with less kind of sparkle and glitter to it. So let's get a good swatch. These feel a bit dry to the touch, I will say. Okay, so Orgasm is on my middle finger and Deep Throat is on my ring finger. You can kind of see that Orgasm does have that sheen to it, or reflect, that Deep Throat doesn't necessarily have. I think there's a slight color difference as well. So Deep Throat is nearest my pinky and Orgasm is nearest to my thumb. So I don't think I've ever had one of those NARS like blush palettes. I know a lot of people really enjoy them, but I just haven't purchased them. I do also have the shade Taj Mahal. I also swatched this in the eyeshadow palette video because there is a shade called Taj Mahal in the palette. So I wanted to compare the blush to the eyeshadow. This type of shade is definitely, I think, a little bit more of a challenge for me to pull off. It's just not my preference, but I can see that being really beautiful on different skin tones, and I think that's also like a very popular shade for them. Okay, so let's apply some highlighter. So I have two different highlighters from NARS. I think this was their like reformulated highlighter formula. They used to have some that were in the same packaging as their blushes. So I have the shades here, Fort de France, which looks like so. And I think the one that's actually going to be more flattering on me is the shade Capri, which you can see is lighter. I purchased Fort de France because I was filming a certain video and the individual whose makeup I was copying used Fort de France, but I think it is just a tad deep for me. So again, I'll just do some little swatches for you. So Capri is on this finger and Fort de France is on that finger. If you have a deeper skin tone, again, Fort de France might be better for you. It's just a little bit more golden. Capri is a little bit more pink. Again, I think when this product came out, everyone I think was going for Fort de France. It does seem a tad bit more reflective. Okay, so let's do Capri on my right cheek. So I'm just going in with my Anastasia A23. That actually kind of kicked up a decent amount of product. So because you have this kind of more glowy blush, there's not kind of a clear distinction of kind of where the highlighter is and where the blush is. But let's try Fort de France on this side. Yeah, this isn't a super kind of blinding highlight. I'm trying to think back. I'm just going to kind of even them up now. I'm trying to think back to when this first launched, to try to remember where we were in our like highlighter journey at that time, because there are definitely trends in terms of, you know, more beaming, less beaming, and of course individual preference as well. Okay, so those are kind of the two shades blended now. It's pretty, but yeah, I don't know that this is kind of anything to rush out to purchase. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom it in for the eyes. Okay, so for primer, for eye primer, I have the like original NARS eyeshadow, what is this called? Smudge Proof eyeshadow base. I have the original, and I also have the tinted version they came out with. I never really loved the tinted version, so it's kind of funny that NARS, there's two products that I really liked from NARS, and then they came out with kind of a part two, and I just never liked it as much. So I'm going to use the original on this eye. And then I will use the tinted on the other. So I have this in the shade Light. And again, I just don't really, I don't know, like this as much. So I don't know, the texture just felt a little bit different. Just a little bit hard to kind of blend in without it looking dry. And this is even like my good eyelid. Like the other eyelid I think has a bit of texture. Like there's this one spot on this eyelid that just tends to be kind of like eczema prone. But yeah, this, it just feels drier. I mean, if you really want to conceal the shade of your eyelid, I don't know. I think if that was what you were going for, I would probably recommend using like a MAC paint pot over this. I don't know, prefer the overall texture of those. Okay, so for eyeshadow, so like I mentioned in that swatch video, this palette from NARS was kind of a surprise hit for a lot of people, I think. This was the Climax palette, which was really great. That is, I think, a little bit more of a fall color story. So I am going to use this new Summer Unrated palette, which I already swatched for you guys. So this will be the first time I'm actually applying this to my eyeballs. So this eyelid feels pretty dry. This one still feels like a tiny bit tacky. And like I said in that video, the way NARS organized this palette is that each row is kind of thought to be a different eye look that you could create, and obviously you can skip around however you like. So I'm just going to do that. So I do want to incorporate the shades Laguna and Orgasm, kind of keeping with this theme. So I'm going to go in with the shade Laguna, which is right here. In the crease, I'm using a classic crease brush from Sonia G, and I'm just going to place that. Probably could have used a smaller brush. They do blend nicely, it's just, I think, a matter of my technique in this case. I do have hooded lids, so that always kind of plays a factor. Usually what I do is I set my primer, my eye primer, with either my loose powder or my like a cream eyeshadow. I'm just taking that same Laguna shade on this Sonia G flat definer brush. Probably going to speed through a lot of this just because eyeshadow application just tends to take the longest. Okay, using a mini booster, I want to go into this shade below Laguna, which is called Palmas. So just put that in the crease. Okay, and then I think for all over, I'm gonna use my Chikuhodo GSN 9, and I'm gonna go into the shade Orgasm. This is just a dry brush. These shades are a bit crumbly. And in my swatch video, I do finger swatches, I do dry brush swatches, and I do wet brush swatches. So you can see kind of the full gamut of different application methods. It has been probably a couple weeks at this point since I filmed that video, so I can't recall offhand what my kind of conclusions were. I'm gonna go in with this shade Satisfy, I think, which is that lighter metallic. Same brush, and I'm gonna focus that on the inner third, the inner corner. I'm feeling some fallout, but I'm not really seeing it, which is interesting. Obviously, you can always do your eyes first, but typically I don't apply my eyeshadow before my complexion. Okay, so that is definitely like a softer look. I think to amp it up though, I'm just going to go in with my finger into the Orgasm shade. You can see that kind of amps up the pigment. If you have nails and don't want to use your finger, you can try wetting your brush, or you can try using those little sponge tip applicators that come with some little palettes. A lot of times that you see at like either the drugstore or high-end for some reason. And you can also buy them individually. So I think to add a little bit more dimension to the outer corner, I think I'm gonna go in with this shade called Bad Intentions down at the bottom and tap that on. I'm creating like a real kind of sunset eye here. All right, let's try wetting the brush. All right, so I wet the brush. I think I'm gonna go back into the Orgasm shade. All right, so I think from here, I'm gonna go in with this classic crease brush again and just kind of knock off any powder still on there and just kind of go around the edges. Yeah, so I definitely was feeling some fallout, which I think brushed away pretty well. Having a shimmery cheek does help to disguise anything, but also setting the base and everything helps as well. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call it there. Honestly, it's not my new favorite palette. I think if you're only going to pick up one NARS palette, I would actually recommend picking up the Climax while it's still available. I just feel like that color story was a little bit more unique. You do get fewer shades, but one of these is kind of a pressed glitter anyway, so I don't know if you would even count that. But if you do like this color story, if you do like it and you've used NARS shadows before and you think you would enjoy it, then by all means. Especially now while it is at Sephora and 20% off, it would be, I think, the perfect time to pick it up. But it's definitely not like a must-have in my book. Okay, so I do have a liner from NARS. This is the Larger Than Life Longwear Eyeliner in the shade Via Veneto. I think this was just like a little sample I got at some point. And my preference is generally for a brown eyeliner. All right, so I like to just go over my eyeliner with a little angled brush. This one is from Sephora. It's actually a brow brush. This was one of their previous like iterations of their brush line, I think. So I'm not sure if they still sell this. This is the number 20, but my other brow brushes are dirty, so I'm going to give this a sharpen. This feels like the eyeliner is one of those like plasticky ones on the outside, which I don't really love. It's also not a very fresh sample probably, so that's not helping. I feel like these are just really hard to sharpen. Oh gosh. Oh look, it does have a sharpener on this side. Go figure. I don't know if I was supposed to sharpen it like a normal. Wow. I think I probably just destroyed that on accident. I'll go ahead and show you guys the carnage. All right, so I think that one is a goner. Let's go ahead and just go in with a different eyeliner. So, like I said, I don't typically go in with a black liner because I do have blonde hair and it's just a little bit harsh. Okay, so I have this Estee Lauder pencil in the shade Night Diamond, which I think is kind of as close a black as I have within reaching distance anyway. Okay, so eyeliner was a fail, but we do have some NARS mascaras to try out. So I do have both their Climax Extreme. This is a little sample, and I do have the Climax. So I thought I would just do one on one eye and one on the other. I seem to recall people not liking the Climax Extreme as much for whatever reason, but we'll try both here. So I do have my Surratt lash curlers. Actually, since Rephr is currently on sale, I'll use the Rephr lash curlers. These just feel a little bit flimsier than the Surratt, so I just prefer the Surratt generally, but let's go in with the Climax Extreme, and that is what the wand looks like. I do like this type of wand. I do typically use a waterproof mascara because I do have straight lashes, and a waterproof formulas just seem to hold the curl a little bit better. So it is in the evening as I'm filming this, so I'm not doing kind of a full day wear test or anything of this mascara, but I will try to pin a comment if I notice any major smudging or flaking in the, I don't know, 4 or so hours before I remove the makeup. Okay, so this is the full-size package of the Climax mascara, and I'll go ahead and show you the wand. I do like the feel of this. I mean, it definitely is reminiscent of the Climax palette, which aesthetically is not my favorite. This wand seems to have a little bit more kind of space between the bristles, which is interesting. It's a slight hourglass shape to it. Seems a little bit drier of a formula. It's annoying me a little bit that this palette doesn't like fully lean back, as it were. So I'm gonna go back to this mirror. Ooh, that has a big thing on the side. I think honestly, I mean, the first coat, I think both look pretty similar. For this one though, I think I prefer it to be a little bit longer and a little bit skinnier. Let's go back for a second coat with the Climax Extreme. So gave some decent volume. If you don't like clumpy lashes, I don't think you'll like this one. I don't mind a little bit of clump. All right, so let's go in for a second coat on this side. So I think I purchased this mascara last fall during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty, but I haven't opened it. And I think it's just a little bit drier than I would like. I think I actually prefer the Climax Extreme side. Let me know what you guys think. That is Climax Extreme, and that is Climax. I don't know, I feel like it's really kind of just splitting hairs, but I did get a tiny speck on this eyelid. I feel like this one is clumping together just a tad bit more. I don't know, I think they're fine, but it's not anything I would kind of rush out and purchase. Okay, so let's talk about some lip products. So like I showed you a moment ago, we have the Afterglow Lip Balm. I guess I'll kind of start from like easiest to remove to more difficult. So this is the shade Orgasm. To me, this is just a really nice kind of throw in your purse type shade. Feels very comfortable and moisturizing. I don't think it has any kind of scent at all, so I really like that. And I'll also just quickly apply the shade Laguna. I think this was in the like Sephora birthday gift. I think I prefer the shade Orgasm personally, but that is the shade Laguna. All right, and then while we're doing these kind of lighter products, I will go ahead and swatch, I think their old formula of the lip gloss. This is in the shade Orgasm, and these are all, I think, pretty heavily discounted. So if you wanted to kind of stock up, if you really enjoyed this formula, I have to say a metallic lip gloss is not always my favorite, but it kind of feels like it has enough tack to kind of stick on the lips, but it doesn't feel like overly sticky, to me anyway. Let's talk about the new Afterglow Lip Shine set though. It's helpful when they do come out with a million products in one kind of shade, because then you can compare formulas pretty easily. So this came in like this little plastic pouch. This was in the sales section of the NARS website, which is why I got 3 different shades here. I purchased more than one NARS kind of lip set from the sales section, so it's always a good place to check. Like the, what is it called? The lip balm, I think, was in a set that I got. Okay, so let's try the shade Orgasm. So this is the Orgasm, what are these called? Yeah, so these are the Afterglow Lip Shines. All right, so let's go in with Orgasm. Of course, my lips are developing a bit of a hue just from all the different shades I've been swatching. Okay, so paddle-shaped doe foot. Yeah. So these do feel like a much more kind of modern lip gloss. Almost a bit like a liquid balm. Again, it still doesn't smell, which I think is my preference, especially over something kind of minty. The packaging on these does feel a little cheap. Honestly, I would prefer to have this style of packaging though over like the kind of soft touch packaging that they've had, where after a while it just tends to get a little sticky. Okay, so here is the Afterglow Lip Shine in Orgasm compared to the older formula of the lip gloss, and I think you can see there kind of the difference in texture and opacity pretty well. I don't know if I have a strong preference for one over the other, it's just different. If you want something a little bit more like, I just want my lips to feel kind of comfortable and that kind of thing, I think the new formula is really nice. Okay, so let's try Laguna as well. And like I said, with all this kind of applying and removing lip products, my lips are kind of developing some color and everything. So yeah. I think with the right look, I might really like this, but it is just a little bit more on the bronzy side. I think I prefer Orgasm on me personally. And we do have one more here. This is the shade Broken Glass. I'm not sure if this is a shade that you can buy separately or if it is exclusive to the set. It's basically just a clear with a little bit of shimmer. So that might be pretty over top a lipstick, or to throw in your bag or something if you just want something to make your lips look nice and like hydrated. So I feel like a video about the NARS products would be lacking if I didn't feature their lip pencils. So they've come out with various lip pencils over the years. So I have both their Velvet Matte Lip Pencil formula and their Satin Lip Pencil formula. They may be discontinuing the Satin Lip Pencil formula because it is currently marked down. So again, if you are a fan of that product, make sure to check it out and maybe stock up before it is gone. So I'm not going to apply every single product to my lips. Let's see, I have a satin, I have a matte. Okay, so I might just swatch these on my hand. It is nice that they have kind of a color indicator on the top of the tube. And this one that was satin had like a separate little ring. So I guess I'll just go ahead and apply the satin. This is in the shade Percugian. And I still have kind of like sparkle on my lips. That is the shade Percugian. Very curious what they're doing. One thing about, I don't know if this was just the sample or if it was larger sizes as well, but you kind of had to really kind of push the top on because otherwise it would just kind of pop off. But yeah, that is Percugian, and then we have the shade Cruella, and you'll be able to see the difference in formula. Just, yeah, so you really have to push it on there. Dolce Vita. This one is a matte, but it definitely has more of kind of a satin feel to it. It's not like a flat matte. And then finally we have Let's Go Crazy. All right, so those are the swatches there. We have Percugian, which is what I'm wearing, Cruella, Dolce Vita, I think it was, and Let's Go Crazy down at the bottom. All right, so I'll just apply, what is this, Dolce Vita really quickly on the lips. The good thing about this formula is that I think it is pretty easy to apply given, you know, the really small point. Not super moisturizing, but it does kind of have that kind of silicone-y slip to it. I'm gonna need to touch up my makeup here. So that is it for the lip pencils. Okay, so as far as I'm aware, NARS has two different lipstick formulas. One is their kind of normal, quote-unquote, lipstick formula, and I have a few different shades in that. So I have the shades Rose Cliff and Orgasm, and in keeping with the theme here, I will apply Orgasm. Again, I think these are just little samples. So I don't think this is my favorite kind of version of this product. I think I prefer the gloss. I'll go ahead and swatch Orgasm next to Rose Cliff. And then I think what most people talk about and what most people enjoy is the Audacious lipstick formula. So I have 4 shades of that. I think some of these might be discontinued. I have Rita, Anita. This was in like a limited edition gold packaging. And then I also have the shade Carmen and the shade Janet. I'm pretty sure Janet has been discontinued. Okay, so I'll go ahead and swatch these. I think these just have like a much kind of creamier formula. So that is Janet. They also have like a magnetic package component. I'm not sure if the regular lipsticks do or not. Carmen is this bright red. I mean, they just kind of glide on. We have Anita. Again, this is another case where it really pays to look at the sale section because you can get some of the kind of limited edition sets and all that at a pretty substantial discount, and these are not like cheap lipsticks. So okay, so I think this red was Rita, that one was Carmen, That was Janet, and this was Anita. Okay, so I think I'm going to apply Anita. These really do kind of just glide on, and you kind of get almost complete coverage in one coat, in one swipe. So that is Anita. I think that's very wearable, very pretty color. So that is it for the, what are they called? Audacious lipsticks. And then finally, I have two of their Powermatte Lip Pigments to share with you. Again, these are sample sizes. So I have the shades American Woman and Star Woman. I think this is NARS's only liquid lipstick. So the red is called Star Woman, and the more neutral mauve color is American Woman. I think all of these Powermatte lip pigments are named after songs, like famous song titles, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this formula also won like an Allure Best of one year for like best liquid lipstick. Okay, so I'm going to apply, what is it, American Woman. I always feel with liquid lipsticks that I want to use a liner first. I just think with a liquid lipstick it's a little bit harder to control. So I'm generally not a huge fan of liquid lipsticks, but I mean, it is transferring a little bit. Okay, so I think to make this feel a little bit more comfortable and kind of fit in with the rest of the makeup, I'm going to apply that Afterglow Lip Shine in the shade Orgasm on top. I think that definitely makes it feel a lot more comfortable. I'm so pale, you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna apply some of the Deep Throat blush. Yeah. Of course, sitting underneath these lights kind of blows out everything, but going with a little bit more bronzer, I think, too. I think that's better. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this full face of NARS come together. Hopefully you enjoyed watching me demo some new products from NARS that are getting a lot of hype, as well as some classics from the NARS lineup. Let me know if there's anything you've tried recently from NARS that you've really been enjoying, or if you have any kind of holy grails in the NARS lineup as well. I also hope that if you were thinking of purchasing anything from NARS in the Sephora VIB sale, that this helped inform your purchasing decisions. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.